Hello folks, the Y Guy here again. Welcome to my home on this very cool autumn afternoon. You know, I woke up the other morning thinking, with a question going through my mind, was Jesus ever sarcastic? So I'm going to call this video, was the Y Guy asks, was Jesus ever sarcastic? Simple, huh? Well, Jesus said in Matthew 23:24, you blind guides, not guys, you blind guides, meaning you blind teachers, spiritual leaders, today would be pastors, teachers, and priests, and what have you. You blind guides who strain out a gnat, a tiny, tiny little gnat, and yet you swallow a camel. If that isn't sarcasm, folks, I don't know what else is. This is just one of a few examples where Jesus was sarcastic, okay? Now, I'm going to supply a list here somewhere on this this YouTube page for this particular video. In the comment section, I'm going to supply a list of 73 gnats. I'm going to call them gnats. And the reason why is because Christendom strains these 73 gnats. There are actually 73 Bible verses referencing how God will have all. That is a passive all, by the way, in every one of these 73 verses. How passive all in the Greek, not a active or a neutral all. And you're just going to have to, I did a video about the Greek word all, what it means in the Greek. So you're going to have to look that one up. Okay, but anyway, how God is going to have all, every person, the whole world, all of creation, and all to be reconciled. Okay? And how he's going to go about doing it. Those are the 73 gnats that I'm just going to list the addresses, not all the verses, but all 73 addresses for you to do your own homework and look at them. And you know what else you're going to find out, which is fascinating about all 73 of these verses? There isn't one single condition attached to them of believing, confessing, or repenting. None. Because if any of those conditions were attached to any of those 73 gnats, then it would no longer be a passive all in the Greek. It would be an active all requiring your active involvement of believing, confessing, or repenting. I hope that made sense. So now I'm going to supply, like I said, those 73 gnats. Now I'm ready to expose the camels that Christendom chooses to swallow, okay, while straining all the gnats. Okay, camel one. No, one. There's plenty here, but Gehenna. Gehenna is a camel, folks. It just is. And what I mean by that is because every Latin translated Bible calls Gehenna hell. Now that's a camel. If you're going to believe that, if you're going to swallow that load of camel, rather than doing this little bit of research to find out that Gehenna is not hell. Gehenna was a trash dump. That's all it was. It was an actual real place. All right? And but Christians seems like they would rather swallow a camel by calling it hell rather than historically finding out what it really was. And it's still there today, this very day. It's not called Gehenna. It's just a park outside of Jerusalem, the walls of Jerusalem today. So anyway, here's another camel. Lazarus and the rich man. I did a video called The Y Guy Asks Who Was Lazarus and the Rich Dude. Look that up sometime. Also, I did a complete full chapter, rather lengthy chapter, in my new book, In Defense of God's Love. It's not out yet. But on Lazarus and the rich man. And folks, the camel is that Christendom believes that the rich man was in hell. That's a camel. You got to swallow that camel to believe that, because in the original text, Jesus said that the rich man was in a place called the unseen. All right? And I'm not going to get into describing what that is on this channel. I'm trying to keep this or on this video, I'm trying to keep it, I've already done videos about it. There we go. However, the ancient Latin church fed a camel of hell to the illiterate people of their day, the peasants of their day, and Christianity today is still swallowing that same damned camel. I hope you caught the pun, okay? All right, let's move on. Camel, the other one, sheep and the goats camel. What is being swallowed here? Well, if you read the very beginning of the chapter of the parable of the sheep and the goats, you'll notice it says how Jesus brought the nations together. So the context is nations, all right? However, Christians are swallowing the camel of believing it's all about an individual rather than the nations. And they describe the individual as the goats are the unbelievers and the sheep are the believers, rather than the goats being the nations that persecuted who? Who did they persecute? His brethren. Who was Jesus' brethren at the time he said this parable? The nation of Israel. You see, it just makes complete sense. You know, versus the nations that didn't persecute his brethren. All right? So it's not about Christians or not Christians and all of that. It has nothing to do with that. All right? That's a camel that Christendom is swallowing. How about the lake of fire? Christians are swallowing a smorgasbord of camels with that term or that. Anyway, you get that. Camel 1, the lake of fire is hell. That's a pretty big camel to swallow, folks. Yet poorly translated Bibles will claim that death and hell is going to be thrown into it. So how can the lake of fire be hell if hell is thrown into itself? You see, it's not right. There's a correct translation. It says that death and the grave is going to be thrown into the lake of fire. And this is the second death, as in the death of death. Okay, the lake of fire. If that proves beyond a shadow of doubt of the third camel I'm going to point out here in a moment. Camel 2. The lake of fire, it's a real place that is eternal and torturous, and it's completely separated from God for all eternity, yet the Bible states it's in the presence of God with angels singing and all that, you know. But Christians would rather swallow that other camel rather than the truth, all right? Now, the third camel is God's justice. It's God's justice to torture people for an eternity. That's the justice of God? That's a pretty horrible camel. All right? Even though that camel goes directly against God's very character, his character of love. It goes against that completely. And God's loving justice, the truth of it is, God's loving justice is to purify those things that are going to be thrown into the lake of fire. Purify them out of existence, including death. That's going to be eliminated as well. So, you know, think of this. God is good, no doubt. His purposes have got to be for the good. That tells me that the lake of fire is good. It's a good thing, and it's for the good. It's a symbolic place, not a real place. Okay? Because if death and the grave are going to be thrown into it, and it's the death of the death, that death of death, this is the second death. That's what tells you right off the bat that it's a symbolic place to eliminate death. So why can't it be a symbolic place to eliminate murders and slanders and oh, the very first one is meek. Timid is the very first thing listed, even before murderers and idolaters and all those things. You know, it's the death of those things. That's what the purification process does. So in conclusion to this video here, Christendom, go ahead and keep straining the 73 gnats that I'm going to supply here, okay, below, that clearly proclaim God's awesome love, his power, and his authority to do his will. Okay? For all of creation, to reconcile all of creation. Keep straining those gnats. And while doing so, if you keep swallowing the camel sauteed in the broth of ignorance, what is that saying that says, you know, the insanity is keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result? I've seen that for 40 years within the Christian churches, how they keep doing the same thing. It's just that different people, the new generation, rise up and they're doing the same thing and they're expecting different results. And it isn't going to happen, folks. As long as you keep swallowing these camels, nothing is going to change. And as long as you keep straining the gnats of the good news of God going to reconcile all the creation, you're just going to keep practicing insanity. If you disagree with me on this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs down. And if you're going to leave a contradicting or a negative comment, be polite about it, so I don't have to delete your comment. I don't mind people disagreeing. I really don't. Okay? But we can be polite with one another. And give me a thumbs up. I mean, thumbs down if that's how you feel. But those of you who agree with what I've said here, give me a thumbs up. And leave a comment to encourage other people. Also an encouragement to other people who might be passing by is subscribe. If they see a number of subscribers, it kind of gives a legitimacy a little bit. You know, I'm not looking for fame and fortune. Not at all. I'm interested in helping folks out, to see people set free from camels. Okay? Anyway, look me up on Facebook. I have a group called the Why Guy Group. It's a private group, and I ask 3 questions for you to answer along the lines of, do you see it through a glass dimly? Because we all do. You know, none of us know all the answers to stuff. But if you want a safe place to discuss some of your beliefs, that's a safe place for you. It really is. And I have a avatar of John Anthony Jones on a public timeline. Look me up there if you would like as well. Thank you for viewing.